That was how the boilers started, you know. Yes, the boilers. That's well, I speak with my tongue in my cheek. They're older queens who, the type of queens who drink out their tea out of bone china and like the crust cut off their sandwiches. Young chickens you can roast because the meat's tender, but when you hen gets older, it becomes a boiler. They were mostly shop attendants from Mars and Buckley and Nuns, and they used to meet in the Australia bar on a Friday night, and that was the nucleus of the boilers. They raised an awful lot of money for charity and things like that. I went up to a small Queensland town a couple of years ago as part of a research into the scene up there, and what I found was that in the smaller country areas you get one group of people, a small group, a community group, and somebody from this group will know somebody in that group, and then somebody in that group will know somebody in another group. So if you want to network in those areas, what you do is, once you're in that group, if you want to continue networking, then you use that group to get to the next group. And Melbourne was very much like that, I think, in those early days. After 35 years, my marriage broke up. And at that time, I didn't know which way to go. And I went back to school, to Phillips Institute, Coburg, and did youth work. A lot of that course was self-awareness, and at that time, going through that process of, when I was 50, of taking self-awareness, I suppose I began to identify who I was and what I was more. My actual coming out process wasn't a flag-waving ceremony down the streets of Prahran or anything like that. It was an insidious process, and I came out more by what I did than what I said. I mean, it was obvious to anybody who wasn't a congenital idiot by my actions and by the type of work I was doing, what have you, that I was gay. I first found gay pride at Mardi Gras 3 years ago. And that pride thing is very interesting because there's another story about that. But the book by Ian Roberts gave me even more gay pride. I was very proud to think that I was in some way in company with a man like that. The other book that I found enjoyable, I wouldn't say it influenced me greatly, I found enjoyable, that I'm reading at the moment, is Peter Blaze's Screw Loose. Now, if you want to know what your scene was like in the 1960s in Melbourne, read Peter Blaze's book and you'll get a very, very good impression. And it was also surprising when I read it, the number of people I know in the book, the number of places I knew. It was a house in George's Street in East Melbourne, which was owned by homosexuals. Very ornate house with wrought iron fence 2 stories high, and I was living in East Melbourne at the time, and I could only watch peripherally, but they had parties there at night which were absolutely riotous, and eventually the police often raided the place about 3 o'clock in the morning. My youngest daughter is lesbian, and I knew she was that from about the age of 10. But I had to wait until she identified it herself, and I certainly wasn't going to push it. She went to Tasmania, and she phoned me up one day from Tasmania and said, "I've got to come out." And I said, "Well, can't you wait till you get back to the mainland?"
Just don't do it in Tasmania.
No. I said, "All right, I'll come over." So I went over there, and even in Tasmania, it took me 2 seconds to find a gay nightclub. There was one down at Hobart, Salamanca, called La Cage. And I took her there, and I linked her into her community in half an hour. We have a wonderful relationship, very special. We can talk to each other about things I couldn't talk to my other children about, and she understands. And the other thing also is that through her, I know lots of other young lesbians, and we're all very comfortable in each other's company. And I'll go into DT's or somewhere at night, and some girl will come over to me and say, "You're Charity's dad, aren't you?" And the conversation starts. The biggest change, of course, is gay liberation. And in those early days, it was hard to link into the community. Sure, you had friends and you had acquaintances, and you'd slink into that Australia bar on Friday night and various other places. But you had to know. It was a question of finding out. Whereas nowadays, it's all so much in the open that you don't have that quest anymore. If you want to go to wherever you want to go, it's there, it's advertised, I would say that. For that reason, I think that younger people have it easier once they've identified what they are in terms of finding their own community. I think to a certain extent I've role-played a lot in my life when you're talking about sense of identity. And in different situations, I'll change my behaviour, modify it or exaggerate it. I don't try to hide what I am. I did at one time, I don't anymore.
Hi, you've called 0055-326-397, the hottest all-adult sex line, completely uncensored. There were jokes being made about me when I was 4 years old, like, oh, David's going to be a diplomat and stuff, like, he's going to be in the diplomatic circle and all that. Because I was just from camp, I used to dress up, and my name was Elizabeth, and my 4th birthday party was a pink party, and everyone had to come dressed in pink, and, so, like, I was a little queen, really. I actually have a very strange memory of and I don't know if it's a real memory or if it was just like a full-on dream, but I have a memory of being in a courtroom, a sort of a very small courtroom setting, and with my grandmother next to me, and my mother and my father over on the other side, and I'm just listening to it all, and my grandmother's crying, and because this is my mother's mother, she hated my dad, because he was just a prick. My support and my family and my friends at that time was my mother's world and her people and stuff, and the best. I mean, it was the best thing for me, for a lot of children who's growing up in a place where a lot of people are taking responsibility for you, a lot of people are there to care for you and love you. The first time I really went overseas was Thailand, because my mother had moved over there a year earlier, when I was 13, and so I basically arrived in Thailand for my 14th birthday. Such a culture shock, like driving through Bangkok in a taxi, and it was like Blade Runner, you know, like water dripping off the buildings and dark and very depressing. That was really when my life kind of started. You know, that's when I sort of formed an identity, because I was going over there as a tourist and I was going over there as a stranger to the people who I was going to be living with. So for me it was like an adult thing. It was growing up, because they were basing, all the opinions and the ways they related to me were based on how they met me at that time. So I wasn't so much a kid. I love the scene, and I love my place in the scene at the moment, and I love what the scene is doing for me. There are lots of beautiful, wonderful, talented, creative, amazing people in the scene, you know, and there's a lot of love in the scene as well. And those people are really happy to share that love. I mean, love is a two-way thing, you know. You send it off to someone and it'll just come back multiplied. I think though that there's a big cloud hanging over it, and I think that a lot of people are caught up in just the bullshit, basically, the crap that happens in the scene. You have to identify as something, you know. You have to have your niche. You have to be in your clique, you know. You're either a drag queen, you're a queen, you're a dyke, you're a lipstick lesbian, you know, or you're a loser. I'd love to be able to go out and think, I don't have to be beautiful, I don't have to feel beautiful, I don't want other people to think that I'm beautiful. But no matter how hard I try, and even though all the knowledge that I have and all the stuff I've been through to do with beauty and all that crap, you know, it's still there and it's still always on my mind. When I'm in drag, someone might come up and say, oh, you look really beautiful, you know. I thought you were so good on stage, you look beautiful and everything. And I take that as a compliment, you know, it's excellent, it's really good at the moment. But then it's like, okay, but now I have to make myself seem beautiful to other people. Lizzie? Lizzie? You did it, didn't you? You demented, twisted tramp. You killed him, didn't you? No. 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 No! I really believe that everyone is divine in their own way. Everyone has their own way of expressing themselves, expressing their sexuality, expressing their gender. I don't want to sound like too sort of, you know, like I'm the alternative and I don't have a label. You know, like, yeah, I'm just so cool and I'm so fluid. But, you know, like, just the simple fact is that labels restrict you.
This is also going to be a haircut, the moustache, and the eyebrows. But the thing is, we're leaving the moustache and the eyebrows for a little bit later. We'll just work on the head at the moment.
Well, this is our annual Crop a Cop event, and that's where police have their heads shaved to raise money for kids with cancer. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now. We raised $3 million last year nationwide, so we're just hoping to go for the same amount this year.
How do you think it's all going? I think it's going very well. It's given a good profile to the police, and we know the management of the police are quite homophobic, but it's good to see these officers prepared to come out and declare themselves and raise money.
How do you feel about being out here surrounded by police? It's a bit unusual for gay men.
Well, yeah, and it's a great way for gay men and the policing community to come closer together, so I think it's fantastic.
Have you done this before? One drag queen in Melbourne doesn't know how to wax and shave. Thanks, this will be all right. Particularly as you get a little bit older.
What's the history of Crop a Cop? How did it begin?
There was a policeman, I think he was from Horsham. He started it off, I think, 3 years ago now, perhaps 2 years ago, and he thought, what a good way to raise money and raise awareness for kids with cancer. So he started it, and it just absolutely snowballed from there.
This particular one was organised by Galpen. What is Galpen, just for our viewers?
Galpin's the Gay and Lesbian Police Employees Network, and we got together as a group to raise money for Cop.
What do you think of this event today? How do you think it's going?
I think it's tremendous. It's good to see Galpin out once again doing fundraising. I think that they were prevented the last time from doing fundraising for HIV/AIDS community. So it's good to see the police force acquiesce and let them do it this time round.
How do you find the general response has been, like just comments and things?
Marvellous, marvellous. People have been very friendly and chatty and asking questions and what it's all about. And even people have asked me how much money we've raised.
Would you have your head shaved for charity?
I don't know. I'll have to think about it, I reckon.
How about you?
No, we got a wedding coming.
How did you get involved in this?
Well, I'm actually friends with some of the guys, but they asked me and I said, why not? I think it's a good cause, it's a bit of history, and it's good to see gay police out there doing something for the community. I think that's really important. So I just jumped at it.
Any chance of you getting your head shaved up there?
No way, darling. Listen, I have hair transplants. I don't have head shaves.
Well, look, there's been a lot of people that have helped us out. A lot of the venues, a lot of the places in Commercial Road. We've had an enormous response from the gay community and the general community. It's been sensational. And I think once you talk about kids and you talk about cancer, people just put their hands in their pockets and bring out the money. I mean, it's just a sensational event, and it's going to get bigger and better.
Great way to raise funds for kids with cancer and other things. Fantastic idea.
There was a very beautiful cross-dresser came along from the Philippine Islands. It was much advertised in Perth, in full drag, the lipstick and slap and strapless frock and long white gloves. And one young fellow in Perth looked at the publicity shots and said, you know, if that's a boy, half the girls in Perth aren't even trying. I had already done a psychiatric nurse training in Western Australia, came over to Melbourne to do a general nurse training at one of Melbourne's major hospitals and simply hated the place, and went back to psych nursing, and I then met the woman who was the love of my life here in Melbourne, and never got round to going back to Perth. I heard about the Australasian lesbian movement, the WHATA, well, the ALM. So I went to see the superintendent of my hospital and the matron and said, do you mind if I join? And he said, no, not at all, provided you keep it out of the hospital. Okay, fine. But the cat came out of the bag when one night one of my patients walked in. I trotted up and tapped her on the shoulder and her jaw dropped. I said, that's right, it's me, did you pick me? I think this is one of the big differences for young people now. In my youth, finding a peer group was darn difficult, if not nearly impossible, whereas they have just to look around and there it is. And this in itself validates you and strengthens you and authenticates you to try and find out what it is you are and where you want to be. Equal pay for women. When I was a student nurse in Western Australia in the middle 60s, and that of course in itself was a big factor in giving women their place in the world, because one needs, after all, economic security to face the world with confidence. See, there was one union in Western Australia that had equal pay for women for 50 years, and that was the Barmen's and Barmaids Union, and psychiatric nurses were the second who went and applied for it. It was a considerable gratification when it was granted. We felt it was only our due, but you talk to some people today and they don't realise that equal pay for women had to be fought for. That there were some brave members, some lesbians, some not, who went and chained themselves to the Commonwealth Building in 1968, chained the doors shut. The police had to bring bolt cutters for people to get into work. Well, I feel that it is, in fact, commercialisation hopping in for its chop. That it sees something that out of which money could be made, so it's not going to miss this opportunity. At the same time, considering how ignorant heterosexuals are of the existence of homosexuality, particularly female homosexuality. So, as I said, rather slightly exasperated that we're being commercialised. I expect it's a good thing in getting everybody else to accept the fact that we exist. Well, thank you for describing me as mature, not as an old chook. So, sometimes one does feel an old chook. I mean, with a recent knee operation, my days of going out to warehouse parties, I think are largely over. And I probably, the people who looked at me were more aware of the age difference than I was. As my mother used to say, when she was in her 80th year, it's funny, inside yourself you really don't feel any older than you ever have been. But she said you try and do the same things and you're smartly reminded. I've always said, of course, that homosexuals of both sexes miss out on that great social glue, which is the difference between them. I mean, we are not interested in each other sexually, and so we interact at different levels. But I personally think I'm very sad when I find myself with separatist lesbians. I think it's a great shame because we have in common a lot more in our experience of growing up, in our humanity, than just that quarrel over differences in physical gender. Something that was rather a revelation for me, although it wasn't lesbian, was certainly feminist, was Simone de Beauvoir saying that the young girl sitting dressed up at a ball is not, however, fulfilling a need, she is attempting to create one. And I thought, now that's what I don't want to be doing. I mean, I had been to dances, country hops and dances before, with high heels and nylons and a strapless frock and long white gloves and a fur cape, slap and a hairdo, and I felt as if I was wearing bloody drag.
As we're coming into the white party here, you can see... Hello there.
Hello.
Now, this is the barrier gates. So now you're directing people over there. Why is that?
With their tickets.
Tickets? Do you go to a lot of these kind of dance parties?
As many as I can, yeah. A few a year.
Have you shaved your chest tonight?
Oh, I depilated.
Aren't you worried about all those chemicals going into your body and everything?
Oh, I didn't turn my mind to it at the time, but I'm kind of burning a little bit in the chest just now.
Are you ever tempted to wax? No. Well, there's a lot of lingerie there.
Well, I'm number one. I'm the queen of the dance parties. Everybody knows that.
Are you wearing 85% white?
Yes, I am.
Did they veto you before you went in?
Yes, they did.
It's a fundraiser for people living with HIV/AIDS and the Victorian AIDS Council, so it's a very worthwhile cause.
From a security point of view, what happens at these kind of parties?
I think really the organisation that goes into these events prevents any great problems. We don't have any problems at all, really.
How many tickets have you sold this evening?
Well, rumours this evening, I don't know, but altogether 8,500 apparently.
What brings you along here this evening?
My sister.
It's a wedding dress!
That's right. The blonde version rode up.
Who designed the show?
Skybrooks put it together with Opal Ross.
These are lovely maps so people know where they're going for the party.
Yeah, because it's an enormous complex.
Yes, it is. 3 dance floors.
How often do you go to the gym to have that happen?
About 5 days a week.
I can't imagine how you're going to get in because you're not really wearing white tonight.
I'm not here to get in.
I might have a bottle of Nappy San in my bag and you could borrow that if you need to.
What am I going to do with that?
Well, just to bleach your shirt white.
No, I'll get in trouble.
Tell me, what type of show was it? Just a brief description.
It was a mixture of glamour and fierceness, darling.
Bernard, everybody's dressed in white.
Funny that, isn't it?
What brought you along to the white parties?
Free ticket.
How long will you be here?
Till the end.
Until the stains start to show.
Exactly.
What time does your shift finish?
7.
7 a.m?
Yes.
Oh, you'll outsee us all. Just between me and you, where's your willy gone?
Where's my willy gone? Or is it a secret hiding place that nobody knows about it except my mother?
Black hole, darling.
How long has that been, Piers?
About a year.
Does that help with your sexual encounters?
Absolutely. Do you know what I think is absolutely heaven is everybody's gone to so much effort. Like, it's just wonderful to see everybody dressed up like this. I haven't seen it like this for years.
Media pass. Only because without that, you're nobody.
Can I leave you with a smile?
Yes, please.
Death!